I'm sure you are familiar with the Dunkirk siege and eventual evacuation, but did you know that the port city of Calais also witnessed a devastating siege, which laid large parts of the city in ruins? And here you see graves of Commonwealth soldiers that perished in that battle. In this video we're going to talk about another forgotten World War II battle, the Siege of Calais in 1940. Good to have you back on the channel. If you're new, my name is Stefan. I'm a Dutch history teacher and I make videos about history for you. This episode is part of the Forgotten World War II Battles playlist. If you like that, please consider subscribing and don't forget to hit the notification bell. Let's start. In the early morning on May 10th, 1940, the German invasion of 4 countries began. The Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg and France. The neutral Netherlands was pretty much on its own. Despite Allied promises, Dutch soldiers fought at different places and did manage to inflict losses on the Germans, but after the bombing of Rotterdam, the Dutch surrendered firmly on the 15th of May, with the exception of the troops still stationed in the province of Zeeland, which surrendered later. Luxembourg had no means to stop the Germans. Border guards of the Grand Duchy could only complain to the incoming Germans that they were violating Luxembourgish neutrality. Belgium, initially allied to France, had adopted a policy of neutrality some years prior to World War II and was again invaded. Now, the events that unfolded in Belgium were decisive for what happened to France. After the Belgian fortress of Eben-Emael was captured, the Belgian troops retreated to the Delay line stretching from Antwerp to Namur. These German attacks, they grabbed Allied attention, and the French and British units moved into Belgium to take up positions. But the decisive German move was not going to take place in central Belgium. To the southeast, in the Ardennes, Army Group A, led by Gerd von Rundstedt, snaked with huge columns of vehicles through the forests, which hit them from Allied aircraft. The plan worked better than expected. Yes, the Germans did get delayed somewhat due to blown bridges by the Belgian chasseurs Ardennais. Sedan was captured on the 12th of May, yet the Germans still have to cross the river. Charles Hunziker, commander of the French Second Army, didn't think Sedan was a vulnerable place in his front because he expected the Germans to move east to attack the French Maginot Line from behind. Therefore, his best troops were located on the right flank of Sedan. Initially, the Germans were held back by French artillery, but the Luftwaffe's Stuka planes took care of that. At Sedan, French B reserve troops were stationed. A French counterattack could have delayed these bridgeheads, but the French wavered, and thus the Germans had time to let panzer units make the crossing. Panic broke out among the French reservists, and communication between the units and commanders broke down as a result of the bombed telephone lines. The French troops at Sedan began to retreat. The spirit of every man for himself began to take hold. The older reservists, who were veterans and survivors of the First World War, did not want to die in this fight. And German propaganda that the British had got them into this war influenced many. So did anti-war tracts of the French Communist Party. Gamelin got overtaken by events. He ordered Hunziker's Second Army to mount a counterattack, but by the time the general had redeployed his troops, it was too late to launch anything more than local attacks, so the Germans didn't go for the Maginot Line rear, nor for Paris. They raced off to the Channel coast. On the 20th of May, the Germans reached Amiens, and that evening they reached the Channel coast. The Allies realized their main armies were now surrounded, and they had to perform a counterattack to break out of the pocket. The counterattack, although courageously carried out, simply did not have the strength or French support, except for some cavalry units, to achieve its goal. This convinced British commanders the French had lost the will to fight. The British-French alliance was now doomed to deteriorate into mutual suspicion and recrimination. By the 25th of May, 1940, German forces had captured Boulogne and were closing in on Calais. The British defenders in Calais were now the last barrier between the advancing German tanks and the remaining British Expeditionary Force, BEF, trapped at Dunkirk. That night, Prime Minister Winston Churchill sent a message to Brigadier Claude Nicholson, commander in Calais, saying, "Every hour you hold out helps the BEF. You must continue to fight. There will be no evacuation." Churchill later wrote that giving this order made him feel sick. The Germans had launched their invasion of France and the Low Countries on May 10th. Within 10 days they had reached the English Channel and trapped British and French forces in northern France. On May 19th, British commanders began planning a possible evacuation, codenamed Operation Dynamo. On May 22nd, German tanks began attacking Calais and Boulogne. Calais, until then used mainly as a rest area, was quickly turned into a defensive position. British anti-aircraft and infantry units rushed to the town. Confusion reigned. Some British units arrived without their vehicles or proper weapons. Others had only pistols. Still, the defenders managed to slow the German advance. Calais was bombed and shelled heavily, but units like the King's Royal Rifle Corps, Rifle Brigade, and Royal Tank Regiment held firm. The Germans were surprised by the strength of resistance and had to call in more troops and air support. The defenders' stand at Calais delayed the German push toward Dunkirk. If Calais had fallen sooner, the evacuation might have failed. Brigadier Nicholson, realizing that defending the town was more important than following unclear orders, held out for as long as possible. His defenses were limited: old coastal forts, few troops, and little support. Instead of defending the ancient walls, he chose to fight within the town, using canals and streets to block German advances. Meanwhile, orders came for a possible evacuation, but confusion reigned, and many soldiers remained trapped. On May 24th, the Germans attacked hard. The British and a small group of French volunteers fought fiercely, holding positions like Fort Neuilly and Bastions 11 and 12. Despite heavy losses and being surrounded, they refused to surrender. The town was bombarded and Nicholson moved his headquarters to the citadel, hoping to be rescued. By the 25th of May, the Germans pushed deeper into the town. Nicholson received a message from British leadership: hold at all costs to help the Dunkirk evacuation. The defenders, low on supplies and exhausted, still refused to give in. German attempts to force a surrender failed. Street fighting was brutal, and many British units were nearly destroyed. A German soldier recalled: "A hot day, the 25th of May. There is heavy fighting for every inch of ground. The citadel of Calais must be shot ripe for the assault. Shell after shell roars out of the German barrels towards the bunkers and heavy fortification. In the evening at 6, surprising hurricane of fire, hit after hit, crashes over the citadel and Fort Risbon at the mouth of the harbor. The infantry support guns and the trench mortars are thumping. Riflemen and engineers jump forward. The machine gunners hammer as if crazy. All men are fiercely determined. Comrades fell, were wounded, and others jump forward. There is only a slow advance. The adversary defends himself with the courage of despair. From all sides, the German storm troops were fiercely fired upon, but they advance. They open passages in the west of the town by force, step by step. On May 22nd, supported by bombers and artillery, the Germans broke through. The French in some forts surrendered, and by the afternoon the citadel and the remaining positions fell. Most of the defenders were captured and spent years in German prison camps. Nicholson died in captivity, but others escaped and returned to serve in Britain. Hundreds of Germans were either killed or wounded in this battle. The Germans took 20,000 prisoners, including 3,000 to 4,000 British troops, the remainder being French, Belgian, and even Dutch. The brave defense of Calais delayed German forces and helped allow the famous evacuation at Dunkirk to begin just hours later. German General Guderian praised the 10th Panzer Division for its speed across France, but even they were surprised by the resistance at Calais. That stand, though doomed, played a key role in saving the British Army. If you want to learn about 2 other forgotten World War II battles of 1940, click here for one that took place in the Netherlands and here for one in Belgium. Thanks for watching, and the History Hustler is signing off.